I said we would consider,
to
consider the board ultimately has to be appointed by the YMCA.
Right. I understand that, but you said you're looking for representatives
Certainly.
from each area, so can we
Certainly.
send you some names so you
Absolutely.
can
You can send me some names that we would consider. Absolutely. But ultimately, the final board would have to be appointed by the Rappahannock YMCA.
Yeah, and I think we understood that from
Mr. Riley, right?
Yeah, from Mr. Riley. So Barney Frank is not the guy, Mr. Underwood. Thank you.
How many board members have currently been appointed to the Caroline YMCA board?
At this time, 4 or 5.
Out of how many?
Well, there isn't a set number. There's a limit. In other words, we could have 15 on the board, we could have 9 on the board. It's a range.
Yeah.
There isn't an exact, it's not like a board of supervisors where you have to have one from each district. We could have a board of supervisors. In Richmond, they had a board, they had the Metro Board of Supervisors was 60. And when the new guy came on, he reduced it down to 20. Yeah. So there isn't a set number. There's a range.
You have as many people as you can have an organized meeting with. If we had 75 people, trust me, I've been on some of those 75 things. It's not fun.
Do you want to share some of the people that has agreed to serve at this point? I mean, is that something you want to share now?
I will be glad to if you
like. You said
Calvin Taylor has volunteered to be on the board of supervisors. I mean, the board of directors.
He has no fundraising experience.
I raised tax.
I didn't support that move. He did.
You didn't support it. So that's from the Port Royal district.
Okay.
Correct?
Right.
I have a gentleman named Lance Carmine, who is a member of the YMCA, who lives in the Bowling Green district, who was on a board of directors at a YMCA in another state, and recommended to me because he's already, served on a Y board. I have sent an application to Maxie Roselle. One thing that I didn't want to do was have a board of directors that were a lot of the people from the foundation that came up here and spoke months ago. But we did want 1 or 2 crossover because we felt that was important. So we invited Maxie Roselle, and I believe he's from the Reedy Church area. Lee Baisden, who is chairman of the Social Services, and she's worked closely with us on our Toys for Tots event, and she lives in Lake Caroline, so that is Madison. I've asked Kay Brooks. Over a year ago, the owner, that used to be the director of the library. We've invited Brett Miller, who lives in Milford, and I think that's
probably me.
Your district. I'm trying to recall the names, but one of the things we've tried to do is get various occupations, various professions on the board of directors. Carrie Bowman, who's an attorney, was invited. So we have.
He's in Jeff Black's district.
He's in Jeff Black. So I now think I have every district covered. But we have an attorney, someone like a principal of a school, a citizen, a board of supervisor. So we have tried to reach out to every district. We've tried to reach different professions, and they're all people that promote and are advocates of the YMCA. And they've already filled out their applications to be members of the YMCA.
All right, Mr. Marine, I think you've explained it, and I think where we are is if you have names that you would like to submit to him, he said he's willing to accept those, and I think we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thanks for coming up even though you wanted to just sit there. All right. Agenda item number 7. Discussion of issues related to phase 1 of the Dawn wastewater project. And is that you or Mr. Parton? Okay, that's you? Yes, sir. All right.
So, Mr. Underwood,
It's us working.
Mr. Parton, if I can't keep it straight.
Okay, and there was a lot of discussion. Mr. Underwood invited me in on this discussion about the Dawn wastewater project. So, Mr. Cully, take it away, sir.
All right. Well, we included a pretty detailed memo for you to review, and I don't want to have to read all of this, especially at this late hour. So basically, I'd like to take some questions as we walk through 4 issues that we've identified with the Dawn project as a whole, which is the wastewater system and the housing project.
While you start this, I'm going to slip back. I know what you're going to say.
We basically have a number of customers that over the life of the wastewater system have been delinquent in paying their monthly bill. It started out at $25 a month. It's currently $28.35 a month. As you see here, in October, 53 out of 176 active accounts are more than 60 days behind. 46 accounts are more than 90 days behind. We have 39 customers with outstanding balance of over 200 and 24 customers that have outstanding balances over 400. We have 11 customers that owe over $1,000 in past due charges. Those are just charges for sewer service. That does not count the penalties that were placed upon those balances. It basically adds up to about $28,119 in sewer charges that are owed to the county, the utility system, the Dawn wastewater utility system, basically. Obviously, there's an additional $47,000 in penalties. These types of balances, balances due and owed, would not have happened on the rest of the utility system due to the fact that we have the ability to cut the water off. We don't have any sewer-only customers other than the Dawn system. We have water-only customers, and then we have water and sewer customers throughout the rest of the utility system. So we're pretty strict in 60 days. You get a notice, you get 10 more days, and we have a cutoff list, and everybody on that cutoff list is cut off that day. And they have to pay a reconnect fee before they're cut back on. That's a lot more difficult to do with sewer only. And we tried to outline in this memo what would occur. But basically, if we have to turn the sewer off, we're going to have to push the people out of the house. We're going to have to turn their electricity off and evict them until such time as they pay and have it reconnected, their meter reset and reconnected, pay all the charges, that type of thing. So it's a lot more difficult situation than just turning a water valve off due to the fact of they will have no sewer for that house once we plug the line. We turn the water off on somebody's house, they still actually have sewer. They can go buy water at the store, they can flush a commode, they can do those type of things. When you turn the sewer off, it's the exact opposite. Then they do not have approved means of sewer disposal, septic disposal by the health department. They do have to vacate the premises. The building official will have to post it as condemned until such time as that is all corrected. So it's quite a lot more to it, and that's what we wanted to try to point out to you. So in working our way through what we recommended for that, and I know it's would be not fair to the folks that have paid their bills all along, but we felt the only way to move forward from this point would be to waive the outstanding balances up to the past 3 months. You can only place a lien on a certain number of months under state law anyway, I think 3 months. So we would be hard-pressed to ever really get this money because we didn't cut these folks off years and years ago and let them build up these huge balances. We felt that if we tried to collect those huge balances, we'd just end up cutting somebody off and pretty much in December or January and having them out on the street in cold weather. So we felt that we started afresh and said straight up, as Mr. Underwood told them at the meeting we had in his district, you're going to have to pay your bill. You're going to have to pay this basically $94 in arrears charges and then keep current on your bill. And if you get behind past 60 days like every other utility customer in the county, we're going to give you that notice. We're going to give you the cutoff notice. And in that 10 days, or basically when we can work it out with the building official and the electric company, we're going to be coming down there and plugging your line, turning your lights off, and asking you to leave the premises. And so it's a pretty stern message, but I think from the county's perspective, in that we let it build up over the years, just to say somebody, hey, you need to pay us $1,000 or we're going to cut you off, there may not be the resources there to get that type of money out of those folks, and then we would be putting those people out, right away, even though we allowed them to build up a tremendous bill. So in the just 4 parts, I'd like to kind of work on this a part at the time, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
That would be good.
And there's plenty more detail in here, but I don't want to just read all this that you've had the opportunity to read.
That's what the proposed solution is for issue number 1 of 4.
Okay.
Concerns? Problems?
Yeah,
Okay.
I got some questions, obviously, so.
Question.
Maybe Joey can answer this. Let's say that I live in, first of all, the sewer, Campbell's Creek, how does that work? They're on Aqua, I know, they're not on both Aqua,
They're
water,
county
and sewer. They're on county sewer.
County sewer. Well, it's actually Aqua Sewer. The county provides a
Connection.
connection.
He can explain that.
So if I'm just quickly here with Campbell's Creek, if I don't pay my sewer bill, is Aqua sending me the bill on that, or is the county?
Aqua Virginia is our customer. We do not have accounts with individual customers in there.
Okay, so it would be Aqua would have to shut them off then, not the county, right?
And they probably
We
shut
would
their
turn
water
Aqua
off.
off if they didn't pay their bill to us.
Aqua would turn them, yes.
Right, and
But
we
in-
get
but
a
in-
water
but in
bill
that
from every
case,
resident.
The bills are coming from Aqua.
Right.
So Aqua Water and Aqua Sewer bill
Okay.
comes together.
Okay.
This is so unique. We don't have another one like it.
I guess, and we go back here to and I was reading in this memo, I guess by law it says there's something with, you can only collect the last 3 months.
That's correct. As of
Okay.
July 1 of last year, you can collect 90 days plus, I think
Okay.
20% include attorney fees.
Are we, if someone falls, are we automatically are we saying here that outside of the Dawn system, let's just talk about the public utilities in general. If I'm, Joe Utility ratepayer in, Ladysmith Village, are we saying that we do not allow anyone to get more than 90 days, 3 months, 90 days behind in their bills?
We actually allow, it's 60 days, we send a cutoff notice. If you are, if it exceeded a balance, we get a 10-day grace period. So at the 70th day, we send notice out. When the list comes down, if it's over $10, we will cut you off. We kind of use that $10 grace period for us because you end up one that's 2 cents and to cut somebody off for 2 cents. So we use $10 basically. Anybody that is then over $10 at the 70-day mark that is that delinquent, we will then cut them off.
Are you saying that there's no one in Caroline County that owes us more than 90 days, outside of the Dawn system, there's no one in Caroline County that owes us more than 90 days in in utilities, water and sewer?
It's less than $100 for the entire county system.
So there's no one owes us more than 3 months?
No, sir. Yes, that are less than $10, but those accumulative are less than $100 total throughout the entire
All the
system.
customers.
No, one person owes us more than $100.
All of them together aren't $100.
Well, his question-
Over
his
90 days.
question was-
Over 90 days.
One person. So the answer to your question, Mr. Black, would be no.
Okay. So there's an enforcement mechanism that's in place in the county?
In the county system, we turn
That
the
is
water.
correct.
That's correct.
Then I guess my question is why isn't there doesn't seem to be an enforcement mechanism here?
There is.
Because we're talking about bills that are past due for.
That's correct.
We're talking about bills that are past due for what, years?
That's correct.
So where is the enforcement? They're part of the utility system. They're part of Caroline County utility system, even though they're on a separate system, correct?
They're under a different code, yes. They're their own system underneath part of the utility, but they've got their own section in the code underneath of 93 for sewers.
So if we have an enforcement, I'm just looking at it from a fairness perspective.
But this is,
If-
the only one where it's just sewer. That's what makes it so unique. If you live in Belmont, which people in Belmont have tried to pay their bills, but times are hard.
And Mr. Thomas, Chairman, I get that, I understand that.
But-
an enforcement, I'm saying even if it's sewer only or water only, there's got to be some enforcement mechanism in place when people don't pay their bills.
There is, and that's what we're asking the board for.
And that's, yeah.
Where we're at now, currently, when we're at a point where
So
a
we're saying is
person
we
is-
set up this system when's Dawn been around, since 2004, 2003?
We started operating in 2009.
2009,
With the first
Dawn Phase 1 was 2009?
Yes, sir.
So, but we start up a system with no enforcement mechanism.
There was enforcement mechanism with the exception of evicting them from their house.
Right.
So there is a way. We've sent letters out. We've gone after taxes. We've gone after garnishment of wages. We have done everything to the point that we can legally do without physically kicking them out of their house. If you didn't pay your water bill, I'd go turn your water off. Now, if I turn your sewer off, you still have a well. You're able to continue to use it. The sewer then would go underground. We are now in violation with the Virginia Health Department because we are responsible to provide them with their means of sewer.
So answer me this question. How is this proposal here going to be any different than previous situations where we have not collected the money?
When they get to 90 days, when they get to their 60-day mark, they then become delinquent. They get a 10-day grace period. At the end of that 10 days, with the board's approval, we will then cap the sewer. We will then have the building official pull their occupancy permit. We will have the Rappahannock Electric come out and pull their meter. They'll no longer have water. They'll no longer be able to live there, and then until the fees are paid to be able to connect them back.
The reality of it is.
But what are we saying to the people that have been paying their bills? What are we saying to the people that have been paying their bills all along? I mean, I'm just curious, what's the answer there to the people who have been paying their bills? If I've been paying my bill every month, my $30 bill, whatever it is every month.
And Mr. Black, I hear you, and this is kind of a situation that's been lingering for some years, and I'm trying to bring resolution to where we can manage this this situation. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But I'm hoping that we let people know that we're serious about what we're doing. And this was the best resolution. As I told, is it fair? You say fair. Absolutely not. It's not fair. If I've paid my bill from the time that I hooked up, and there are many there that are paying their bill on time every month, are doing what we asked them to do. All I said, and Mr. Cully and I talked to Alan, I just wanted a mechanism and a date so that I can say, this is the date that we start. You've heard it. There's no more free ride for anybody. That you've basically hadn't paid any attention to the notices that we talked about. I think Mr. Sheba was instrumental in sending out notices. We talked about it. I talked about it with many of the folks live in the Dawn area. They understand that this is not perfect. I wanted to say, this is what has to happen. If it doesn't happen, then you're going to reap but I wanted to make sure I sent the message that it's going to happen. It hasn't happened yet. And I doubt very seriously, it's going to be a battle for some. Some people are just going to have to make an example of some people. Because some people don't believe it's going to happen. Because we sent out notices, they've ignored them. But we've said, and I have said to them, again, this is it. This is the end of the road. This is where we can collect only the 90 days in terms of putting a lien on. So we looked at that. We said, that's what we'll do. We'll start them there. Some people are not going to pay.
Yes. Did we not, last year, correct me if I'm wrong, did we not we forgave, we were willing to.
That's part of that.
Yeah, we were willing to forgive the penalties, right? As long as there was an agreement.
We were here a year ago, and this has been an ongoing issue.
But from last year, there was no enforcement put in last year?
You gave me the ability to go put in liens, go after taxes. We were doing all that, still putting notices out, and you allowed anybody that did a pay agree that you would waive further penalties on their accounts. We had 9 of those. I think it was 9 that actually had signed up and were doing that. I think 5 of them defaulted. The other ones paid it off. Out of the 50 that were delinquent. So you gave me some tools a year ago. Now we're back in the same thing. We get the people, we send notices out, we hang door hangers, and they call our bluff. We say we're going to cut you off. That's the only mechanism we got to stop service, and we don't have that ability to do that. This would now give us that ability.
Let me just say, curious, why don't you have the ability to do that?
Because the board's been reluctant when we go into the Dawn area to help individuals that did not have money to then go in and evict them from their house. The board has been very reluctant to allow us to do that. It's just gotten to a point where we have no other choice. We have no other means of being able to disconnect service without evicting them from their house. And I think it's because the way the project was, we went into a very low to moderate income area. 75% of phase one were in the LMI area. So now we're going into this area, and the board was reluctant because we were going there to help these individuals of not kicking them out. We're trying to get them where they've got potable water. They've got a sewage disposal system. 23 homes didn't have indoor plumbing, and they got a house because of that through the grant program. So we're now at a point where we're seeing that us being the good guys, as the county's trying to do, we're being taken advantage of, and we've got no way to recuperate any of these funds except for cutting them off. And unfortunately, by doing that, because we own the step tank, we are responsible providing services to that sewage disposal services to that residence. We own that tank. It's our responsibility. So if we just go cut that off and it goes on the ground, I'm responsible for that. As the county, we cut them off and leave the water on and it overflows. I'm responsible for maintaining and operating that system through our agreement with the health department. So I have to turn the water off.
Mr. Schiebel, that was a great synopsis, and the reality is, as he said, this was a low to moderate income project. We were basically helping with grants and state and federal money. We were helping folks that didn't have indoor plumbing, didn't have sewer. The issue, Mr. Underwood, I'm sure, is well aware that with shallow wells and bad sewer, there was all sorts of health issues.
That's correct.
So we can't just, well, go ahead.
Again, you know, the county put a lot of money into this project as well. County
Absolutely.
dollars
Absolutely.
into this project. My thoughts are, this is not an ideal situation, as Mr. Underwood has said. I'm willing to support this, but I'm saying up front, this is the last time. At this point, from this point on, I'm saying they have to pay their bills as well as everybody else has to pay their bills in the county. But I'm supporting this effort because I agree. I think we need to start afresh, and we need to give them the opportunity to show that they're willing to do it as far as paying. But I personally will not support in the future coming back and saying, okay, we're going to need to relieve them of more.
There won't be any need at that point.
Because you're right. The board in the past has said, okay, let's not cut them off. Let's not put them on the same conditions as everybody else. Well, there are people out there hurting in other communities that we are cutting water off, and we are doing those things. Mr. Chairman.
All right. Final round, Mr. Seeley.
I guess I just have a couple of questions, and I want us to talk about how we're going to deal with this. What if REC won't pull their meters when we say where they're going to cap off their sewer?
We've already discussed that with Rappahannock Electric, got their fees. We've talked with the building official of how we would do that. We would also have to involve the sheriff's office every time to make sure that all of the people that are there will be safe. I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to be upset if we come to shut their sewer off, and you're going to tell them they have to leave their house, they have to leave their premises. So there's going to be some upset people.
Well, let me take you through the scenario. If we start this, it's going to start in December. So they go December, January, February. That's going to be their 90 days. 90 days is in February. REC has a policy of not turning off power on people in the middle of winter. So now we're going to invoke a policy, and I'm just walking through the scenario so I understand. We say we're going to cut off their sewer because they haven't paid in 90 days, and they still owe 90 days. So they'll really be 180 days behind. Correct?
They would have to maintain their payment. They would have 90 days to pay it back. But technically, if they didn't pay their first payment, that would then start them 30 days delinquent, 60 days delinquent, 70 days we could start notices.
So then you're in January, early February still, either way.
Yeah, the bills would go out December 15th, so it'd be January, February, it'd be March would be your 90-day mark for that last bill.
And if REC won't turn off the power, I mean, do they understand that this is going to happen in winter, summer, spring, fall?
I think it's a little different situation than not paying your utility bill. They're being requested that the building is no longer inhabitable, and they have to pull the meter because it's no longer inhabitable.
Yeah, they don't have a CO.
Yeah, there's no building. Right.
Yeah, the building official will have to condemn the house when the health department, because it doesn't have septic sewage disposal. So it's a health department issue, which then requires the involvement of the building official, so then it's not habitable. He has to mark that house not habitable, and REC has to pull the meter based on the building official saying it's uninhabitable, just like if it was in a fire or something.
Right.
So-
Okay.
It's not because of
So they
non-payment.
can't, then they can no longer go into that residence once that happens?
Right, they don't have a certificate of occupancy, therefore they can't occupy the
They're
residence.
basically going to be evicted by the
They
sheriff.
don't have to be. Put them on the code. Yes,
All right.
Mr. Whiteman, can we do this?
He's been in our meeting.
Building code-wise, we can do this?
Yes, the health
Okay.
department will, Joey will notify them that there's no approved means of sewage disposal. They will chop an NOB to me, and by state code, if you don't have an approved means of sewage disposal or potable water,
NOB means what, Kathy?
notice of violation.
Notice of violation. Okay. Now, nobody really wants to do this.
Nobody
I
wants to do
understand,
it.
and my other question is, how are we going to send it? Are we going to send certified letters, or is somebody going to see these folks so that they understand? Because we've been sending them notices and they haven't been paying.
Well, I would think the sheriff's
Mr.
gonna have a
Underwood gave
serve
them
stuff.
notice the other night.
I'm just saying that
Jeff,
that's,
let me say this, Jeff, let me say this. I'm not a dadgum mind reader.
I
I
understand.
can't see the future.
I'm just asking.
We have gone through a process to put something in place to manage this. Now, is it perfect? Is it pretty? Is it nice? Absolutely not. But we said enough is enough. We will take whatever steps we have to. We didn't want to go to this extreme, didn't have a choice. So I'm not going to sit here and beat around the bush and say, what if, what if, what if? This is what we put in place to manage this system because there was nothing in place. Now we at least have something in writing. We've given people notice. If there's something that happens, we're going to follow the same process for every other citizen. That's what you want, to make sure that it's fair, and that's what we're doing.
Now, I
Is that
wasn't at that
simple?
meeting, so this is the first time
I
I'm
don't
really
care whether
hearing
you or
this.
not.
I'm just
Okay.
asking a question because I
All right.
wasn't there for this.
I think we're,
Staff doesn't
Do we need
believe that there's any other mechanism out there to get them to comply with paying the bill. That we're at a point where we've got to treat them the way we treat everybody else, which is cut them off. Unfortunately, because they don't have a water line and have individual wells, cutting them off means we got to cut everything off. They don't have a sewer, and the health department is going to require that they be removed from the house. And yeah, it's listed, it's kind of in a bullet in here of every step we believe we're going to have to take in bullet form when we go to do this, and coordinate it with the health department, REC, the building official, and public utilities. It's a lot to do, more than what Joey does, which is he sends this guy with a cutoff list, and they turn valves off all day long. They can turn off 20 or 40 if they need to. This is a lot more complicated situation to handle. But we believe this is the only way.
all right. Thank you. Let's go to number 2.
Number 2 is
Loans for new and
the
rehabilitated
loans.
Quinn Rivers housing.
As we dug into this, and this is a lot of more detail here, but I think we've got a smooth situation to handle this as well. Quinn Rivers handled this project for the county. They had 3 or 4 different loan officers that took and wrote these various deeds and deeds of trust notes. In working with DHCD, they told, when Fran took this back over and Quinn Rivers went out of the, doing this type of project, you know, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that. And what we found in the deeds, in the deed of trust, that there was 3 or 4 different ways they were written. Some were completely forgiven and don't owe anything. Some have a fixed amount, and some have what's called language for ability to pay. DHCD told Fran to do all of them with ability to pay, but our attorney won't allow us to do that if the deed of trust it's sort of like if you had an adjustable mortgage or you have a fixed mortgage, we can't be adjusting these loans based on the state telling us to do it when it's not in the deed of trust. So and we've had some of the same situations where we've had some people paying right along steady. We've had some people that have paid some of the notes and not others. We have somebody that hasn't paid anything. So we want to, and it's a 10-year note, we want to take and look at each one. If you've paid something, if you've paid every payment, there's nothing going to happen to you. And if you're happy with what you're paying and don't want the adjustable language in there, we'll continue to go right along your deed of trust. If somebody's in there and they've got $190 they're supposed to pay, they've lost their job, and they want the ability to have that note lowered under ability to pay, they need to work with us, and Ben will put a new deed of trust, and he had a legal term for what that's called, and put that in place, extending it out so that we get what we're owed for the 10-year period. So if you've made one payment, you still owe us 119 more. If you've made 5 years' worth, you owe us 60 more. So each one is going to be based on the actual account and then whether the person wants to change their deed of trust to put in the ability to pay language. And so we feel that that's the fairest way to get all these. With that, though, they've also been told we're going to do the same thing as a bank basically is going to do, 4 months, and we're going to start foreclosure proceedings if you're not paying your mortgage. So that's this sort of this simple with a lot of verbiage in there. There was a lot of things done with this over the years by Quinn Rivers as these houses were built, but I think we can bring them all into compliance. We can map out how many years and how many months left on each note to make sure that we get the money. We've already lost 2, I think, to a foreclosure that we're not going to get anything to, and we've got a couple in bankruptcy. We've got a couple issues with them, so we're down from the original number down some, and then some of them were I'm pretty confident the people that were given a 0 deed of trust are not going to come back and renegotiate that to a higher amount.
I wouldn't do it if I was.
So I think we're down to 14 or 15 of these homes. But we believe we can get these straight and move this all forward with the same caveat. We are going to treat this, you've been given, you've been told, pay the bill, here's what you got to do, or we're going to go to foreclosure.
Minor irony here is the people that, Quinn Rivers, that wrote these contracts now work for the Department of Community Housing and Development.
So community housing doesn't have any responsibility in taking care of this?
No, we do.
This was a grant we got from
And the payments go back into program income fund to be used for other housing project needs. We're going to use some of the money for Dawn Phase 2 wastewater to help connect some of the LMI homes down there and that type of thing. So it's money that's generated back locally into a program income fund. There's a housing board that reviews and approves the use of that money. So it's...
Can any of that money be used for debt service?
No.
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's just a resolve. It's just kind of a revolving loan.
Right.
The reality is, if you're not paying, you're hurting your neighbors and the other people in the program. So there needs to be a little more community relationship to make sure it works a little better. All right, number 3 is water quality, Mr. Cully.
There were, due to the construction, there was a lot of shallow wells, and with the failing septic tanks in the area, it was required by the health department that we install deep water wells. And you get into the same problem that the counties had with their deep water wells. At times you have minerals in there that cause a sulfur smell. All of the wells at the time were tested and approved by the health department. They were put in by certified well drillers, tested and approved by the health department. But there have been a number of complaints of smell and bad taste due to those minerals. So in researching that, Mr. Whiteman has found that there's a tank that can be put in place of the current bladder tanks that are there. That it's called a micronizer, and that I don't know how it works, and I'm not going to try this late. But anyway, it's a chance that will work. It's not 100%. It depends on the makeup of the water whether this tank will work or not. We've gotten prices from 3 different installers, and there's about $1,000 a tank. Well to do. We believe we have money in the program income fund from the people that have been paying their housing payments to cover that, so we're not asking for any local money for that. It would have to go to the housing board for approval. But with that, I've got one other...
Go ahead.
Let him finish. Let him finish.
we believe, and I've told this to Mr. Underwood, they have to be told this is not a guarantee, and the only way forward would be reverse osmosis, which we cannot afford to do. The maintenance on that alone, much less the system installation. So the folks would have to be told, well, if we put this on and it doesn't work, you're on your own. The well is clean. It's been approved. You have an issue with smell and taste, but we can't do any more. It would have to be this is the final step, because RO is $6,000 to $12,000 with about a $1,200 a year, $1,200 a year maintenance.
$100.
Yes.
Can I, Mr. Chairman, or?
All right, you're done? Yes, sir. Mr. Bryant?
When the Dawn, as far as the wells are concerned, when the Dawn project took place, the wells used to be shallow, correct?
That is correct.
And those were shallow wells that were in bad drain fields, correct? And
Or
mixing
close
with-
by.
or close
And
by.
bad
They
soils
could have
all over.
possibly been mixing with things like E. coli or, bad, whatever. So then, as part of this Dawn phase, the wells went down deeper?
That's correct.
And by going down deeper, even though the water maybe smells terrible, there's much less of a chance,
It's clean.
and it's clean water.
That is correct.
Clean is a relative term.
Well,
Yeah, if it smells bad, you don't think it's clean.
Because it's got minerals in it.
but did it not have to go through inspections when when the wells were dug? Did it not go through inspections?
Yes, all
They
of them
all went through
certified.
inspection.
Yes, they're
Okay,
certified.
so I guess I'm going back to the whole thing on this particular topic. At my house, if I turn on the faucet and my water smells bad, at my house, and I don't like the smell of it, whose responsibility is it to fix that?
Did you get a program that came and dug a well for you?
Wait a minute, a program
No.
that gave you a well that passed health department regs.
Right.
Right. Well, same thing. You know, they got a well because of issues they had.
But the well
at their
passed,
site.
did the wells not pass inspection, though?
Let me say this, Mr. Black, I got to be honest with you. They believe that even though Mr. Whiteman was there, the water coming out of the shallow well, even though it was contaminated,
They didn't know it.
they didn't know it
Tasted good.
because it tasted fine. It smelled fine.
Or it didn't smell like
It
sulfur.
didn't smell like sulfur. So they were steady drinking water that was clear to them, had no smell. So they're saying, you took my good water, and now you gave me this bad stuff. So this stuff stinks like all get out. So those shallow wells that I had, I didn't have to deal with this. However, little did they know that the shallow well was the one, even though it was clear, looked good, smelled good, it was contaminated. So it's just reversal.
Ready for number 4?
Get in the program, you dig a well, it's brown, it stinks, and you say, you did me a favor. They're saying, no, you didn't do me a favor. Well, we know it passes. Mr. Whiteman had a test for each well. But trying to convince folks that brown, stinky water is okay when I had clear water, it's a task. It's a task. I wish it were as simple as we're trying to make it out to be, but it's just not that simple.
Here's one of my questions. It says, under the DHCA rules, the funds must be used for programs which directly benefit low to moderate income residents of Caroline County who are living in substandard housing. These funds cannot be used for any other purpose, including debt service or previously completed projects. So we can't take the money out of that fund and use it on a house that's a previously completed project that's not substandard.
We already,
I mean, I'm just
We got
reading
approval for
what
that.
we got.
I think Mr. Parton is saying we got approval for that.
I thought we
Yeah,
did.
I think we did. Through the board.
We'll verify it again tomorrow, but I think we've had a previous conversation on that with DHCD, and they've indicated that is an acceptable use.
Right.
And my other question is, how many people that haven't paid their bills are we going to do this for?
I don't really care. Again, all I'm trying to do is get to even board so that I have the ability to try to help. What's in the past for me right now, it wasn't, I could very easily have said, this happened before I was ever on the board, and just let it sit. I could have done that, because I wasn't here. You were probably here, and a couple other members were probably here, but I wasn't here. So I'm going back to try to rectify a situation that gives people a little bit of hope. I'm hoping gives us some accountability. Is it, again, Jeff, and I understand what you're saying, and you can sit here and we can play devil's advocate, we can play semantics. The reality of it is, it's a situation where people feel like they've gotten a raw deal. They have houses that were built that are falling apart, some because of poor material, but the material passed code. Was it the top grade material? Absolutely not. It was the Pinto of material. They didn't go out and get a straight 2x4. You got one that was crooked. But hey, the state said you could do it. So your wall, consequently, is crooked. There are some issues that they created themselves by not doing proper maintenance, but most of the issues were within state code, but state code let it be at the bottom level of state code. You got houses that were subpar for me in terms of quality, but it was within state code. So,
and you may recall what the state allows you to do. Remember years ago when the state allowed us to put that gypsum board on the on the landfill as cover? Yeah, obviously somebody out there remembered it too, because that was the worst smelling stuff at all. But we did what the state said we could do. All right, we're gonna go back because we're out of that business. We're gonna go back to number 4, and we're done with the project.
The last part of was discussed was, and it came up at a board meeting when the Extension Service said they were going to have some water testing kits available, I think at the time for $5, to test for both lead and then other contaminants. It's a 2-part test that you have to take 2 different bottles. And so we didn't believe that we should be totally responsible for that, because we'd almost be taking ownership of the wells to be doing that. And so we're proposing to obtain some kits, 20 kits from the Extension Service, and then we have a volunteer down there that's going to coordinate the dispersing of those kits and collect them, and I think we'll work with them to maybe get them back to Virginia Tech for the testing. The price of those has gone up to $49. There's been inflation at Virginia Tech, so they're no longer going to do them as cheap as they could. But that was the last thing that we want to do, and that's going to be for if somebody wants one, we'll have it available, and they want to test have their well tested. It is a responsibility of the homeowner to test a private well. It's not the county's. We have to test the public water system, but all the private wells out there are tested and approved when you move in, and the health department does encourage you to have those tested ever so often. And if there's anything in it, then it's your responsibility to chlorinate it and take care of that and flush it and do all those various things that you have to do after the chlorination. So those are the 4 pieces to the puzzle. The first one's really the most, involves the most money for us. The loans are not coming back in the general fund anyway. We just want to get those being paid and paid back into the program income fund. And as far as the micronizers, we believe, ever since I've been hearing about the issues with the wells, and we think we found a solution that may solve some of it. We may put them in and not solve anybody's, but we do believe there's a chance that those will work. But I think you need to put that in your motion that that's all we're doing. We would do staff request that these are the things we're going to do, and we've done all we're going to do.
And this, of course, what we've been discussing are staff recommendations.
That is correct.
Okay, Mr. Underwood.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendations of staff in terms of working with related to the Phase 1 Dawn wastewater project.
I'm not sure that's enough of a motion.
All right.
I'm wrestling with.
All right. How to do it? Let me just pull it back.
Oh.
Let me see.
He has to actually read this. Okay, we have a
Oh, we have a
resolution,
resolution.
so we would adopt a resolution for waiving, that could be part of your motion? To adopt a resolution for waiving utility charges?
It's one page, everything.
We're all just getting, it's just one page. I just have 10 pages. Everybody got one? Okay.
But, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification,